Hello, how you doing? I'm Craig Parkinson. You are listening to the Two Shot Podcast. Sit yourself down, pop the kettle on. We're going to have a nice old chat. Who's it with this week? I'm going to tell you right now. How the devil are you? It's Thursday. It's the podcast. You're here. Sit down. Grab your brew. We're going in. Talking about going in, my God, you went in hard and strong last week for Joseph Gilgun. And what, man, what an episode. I'm so chuffed it connected with everybody. As I said, I don't think we've had a more brutally honest conversation on all of the 79 episodes. I mean, God, some things go deep and they go deep very, very quickly. But that's the nature of the conversation. But with Joe, I felt that he really needed a platform to sort of talk and get things off his chest. So thank you for all the responses and for telling your mates and downloading, because it really means a lot, spreading the word of the Two Shot Podcast. This week is episode 79, and it's Geoff Lloyd. Now, you'll know Geoff from his brilliant podcasts, Adrift and Reasons to be Cheerful, with the Ed Miller Band. And you'll know him from the radio. I've known him from the radio for years. I've always liked him. And what I've always found about Geoff on the radio is he's very natural. I always thought that if, you know, I ever met up with him for a cup of tea, he'd be exactly the same. And turns out he is, because he invited us round to his house, and lucky for producer Griff, he didn't have to do any setting up with microphones, because Geoff, in the top of his house, has got a lovely little studio. And we sat down, we grabbed our brews, and we got into it. Now, the only thing I will say, we had a bit of time restraints on this, which I've never normally have, but we were running late we had to get across London, very boring traffic, you know. And Geoff had to go and pick up his little bambino, so we had to get out of there quick. But it's still a fantastic chat, and I'm really, really pleased that Geoff came on, because he's a lovely, lovely fella and bloody good at his job. He makes it seem effortless, what he does, and I know it's not. But just before I get into it, I want to read you something that Geoff put out in January on his Twitter feed. And when I read it, and it's quite a long thread, so just bear with, but it connects with our conversation, so I thought it was really important to preface the podcast with this. But when I read it in January, I sent Geoff a message on Twitter just to say how honest and brave I thought he was. Brave is the wrong word, isn't it? I thought it was so honest, but important that he said that, and what I'm about to read. So yeah, that's that. Yeah, I'm babbling, but let me get on with it. So this is a thread that Geoff wrote on his Twitter feed, so just bear with. My wife apologised to me earlier for missing my 18 years soberversary, if that's a word, yesterday. There was no need. I'd completely forgotten about it. From time to time, people get in touch asking for advice, so if this is helpful. As far as I can tell, there's no one-size-fits-all definition of what constitutes a drink problem. It's about whether you feel your relationship with alcohol is a healthy one. I didn't wake up every morning and reach for a drink. Some days I even waited until after midday. Drink made me a chaotic friend and a liability at work. My mental health can be a bit wobbly at the best of times, and at the end of a night's drinking, when I went home, I could end up in some pretty desolate states. For me, booze and antidepressants were a bad mix too. At the end of a particularly bleak night, I ended up in A&E. I was lucky and was immediately admitted to an NHS hospital for a couple of weeks, which gave me a head start in getting sober. I've known people with varying experiences, but a chat with a doctor is a good start. I never went to AA, but I think it's the best thing you can do. It's the first thing I'd do if I found myself in need. I have friends for whom it's a literal lifesaver. It's important to find a group that suits you. Some are a bit gaudy, others not really. There's been some negative reporting of its success rates, but if you flip the numbers and think of it as a percentage chance of a cure, you'd definitely give it a go in any other situation. People supporting each other is a beautiful thing. Something I found useful was to tell people outright, Previously, when I'd tried to have the odd day or week off the booze, people didn't like it. They'd try to get me to have a drink to make themselves feel comfortable. Something about the idea of cutting down holds up a mirror. Once I'd actually stopped drinking, I'd say to people I had to stop. I got a bit messy on it, or it became a problem for me. And 99% of people are incredibly respectful of that. I suppose this is a version of one day at a time, but in the early days, I'd think of it as one decision. All I had to do was not have a drink when I wanted one, reduce it to a binary choice in the moment rather than thinking about it forever. Probably the main reason I didn't stop drinking sooner is that I was worried I didn't have a personality when sober. I still worry about it, but friends and family tell me they much prefer being around me now. That being said, 5 years after I stopped drinking, I went to a wedding. An old drinking acquaintance was at my table. Halfway through dinner, she shouted, "See him? He used to be a funny fucker. Now he's a boring bastard." 10 years after I stopped drinking, I started seeing a brilliant therapist. He made sense of why drink and me were a bad fit in the first place and helped me with some basics that I'd never addressed. Probably would have if I'd gone to AA. I know therapy is a difficult one. The NHS has been woefully underfunded and overstretched on this, and my experience of therapists is that you often need to kiss a few frogs, something many people don't have the luxury of. That's another way in which AA can be so useful. Sorry if I droned on a bit here, but if you think this is bad, you should have heard me when I was drunk. I feel pretty uncomfortable being earnest, but I thought it might be useful to someone, somewhere. And I think on meeting Geoff, we talk about his worry and certainly what people think of him and wanting to be pleased and pleasing people. He's a thoroughly decent and lovely fella. And I really wanted to read that thread out because it really touched me when I read it, and I thought it was insightful and honest. And I know that someone somewhere would have got something out of it. And I really hope you enjoy this episode. This is episode 79 of the Two Shot Podcast with Geoff Lloyd. Enjoy. I'll see you at the end. I was listening to Adrift last night. I'd finished this job and I was working quite late, and I went to go and get some food, and I was listening to Adrift. I don't know if it was the latest one, but it was when you were talking about getting up at like 3:45 for a taxi.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
then he wants a little natter.
Yeah.
I was really feeling for you because
you must have that on shoots all the time.
But the first thing I do now, and I can sense if they're going to be a quiet driver or they're going to want to have a little chat. The headphones, I say to them, I said, don't mean to be rude, I'm just popping my headphones in, even if I've got nothing to listen to, so then I can just close my eyes.
I've really wanted to do that for a long time, but I'm very needy for approval. So I've never thought, how can I put my headphones on without appearing rude? And you've just unlocked it for me. You say, I don't mean to be rude.
I don't mean to be rude. The guilt's gone. You
Yeah.
don't mean to be rude. It's fine. And sometimes it's very early. I take a pillow from the hotel because it's visual. It says I'm quite tired.
Right,
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
just put my head down on the pillow, and that's my little tip.
Do you like getting into it with people though? When they, say a taxi driver's got a controversial opinion, do you like arguing the toss?
Well, I don't really, because if they've got that strong opinion, they're enforcing it on you, and that's their opinion, and
Yeah.
they don't want a debate,
No.
or they don't want any sort of information that's going to change their mind or their opinion.
So
about
what do you
something.
think they're either thinking? They're either thinking, I'm going to find someone who agrees with me because secretly everybody agrees with
secretly,
me.
yeah.
Or they're going to be able to say, well, he's one of those liberal elites.
Well, it's one or the other, isn't it? I mean, I think they want a challenge because it heightens that. You never get to add in my cab today. This geezer came in and he thought this, and I told him what was what.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. When I used to do the breakfast show on Virgin, they would send taxis to bring us into the radio station every day because it was so early in the morning.
Yeah.
And, they were bizarre. They almost to a man, they were quite bizarre characters. And there was this one who we used to call Gary and then we would use the worst word imaginable. That was our little nickname for him. And because they have to ring you or send you a text message to let you know they're outside,
Yeah.
he'd got my phone number. And this was in the early days when people would send jokes around on text message. So I would end up it was before WhatsApp or anything like that, I'd end up getting these terrible sort of jokes from him on text message. And like a couple of times they were a bit racist.
Yeah.
So I texted back one time, said, Gary, I've got to be honest, I'm not really comfortable with you sending me racist jokes. And he sent me a message back saying, "Oh, sorry, mate, I'll leave you out of the racist ones." So the idea of there's nothing wrong with the racist jokes in his head. He's just like, it's not the racism that's the problem.
Take him out.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Do you get into it with people?
No, because I'm so needy for approval. And I'm just scared of conflict and confrontational. I'm the most diffident person. So, a taxi driver can be sitting there. I had one the other week who was going on and on about inheritance tax and how it shouldn't exist at all. And, and there's all these reasons why I think he's wrong. But so my strategy is to just sit there going, "Oh, right, yeah. Do you think so? Yeah, I suppose some people could see it like that.
Interesting thought.
Yeah. But I just don't. I just want to close down the conversation in such a way that doesn't make them dislike me. Especially in the day, like with Uber ratings as well. It's made me such a paranoid person because I think I'm a model passenger. I never keep a cab waiting. I'm always ready to go. With Uber, I always learn their names. So when I get in the,
you say hello.
Say hello to because I want them to like me. And then I think I'm quite empathetic, and I will gauge how much they do or don't want to talk, and then I'll talk accordingly. But I mean, generally, what I'm just doing is asking a lot of questions because I don't want to talk about myself ever really in any situation. And then Uber had been going for a few years, and somebody said, you have an Uber rating. It's not just the drivers. I said, no. So they showed me how to look it up on my phone. And I was something like 4.68.
Out of 5.
Yeah. I don't think it is because I think I'm such a model passenger. If somebody is marking me down, it's basically that they don't like me as a person because I never slam the door, I never keep them waiting, I never tell them which way they should be going, I don't bring food into the Uber. I'm a really great passenger. And I can only think that some people just say, I don't like that guy, and give me a 1 out of spite.
You sound 5-star.
I should be 5-star.
You should be 5-star.
And actually, I got a new phone recently, and I couldn't log into my old Uber account, so I've got a brand new one, and it's actually made me scared of using Uber because I don't want to lose my 5 stars.
Geoff, where does the neediness come from? The approval, the seeking, the wanting to be. Is it a wanting to be liked?
Yes, it is, but then sort of constantly thinking I'm quite not unlikable. I don't think I'm nasty or anything, but I worry that I'm a dickhead or I'm annoying or stuff sort of constantly. I don't know. I mean, if you want to get all therapy about it, I'm adopted.
Well, I wanted to go into that. I wanted to go back to that, but you jumped me to it.
So I was adopted very, very young, 6 weeks old, and for the first maybe 40 years of my life, if anybody ever asked me about being adopted, I'd say, oh yeah, but I was adopted so young and my mum and dad are so great that it hasn't really had any effect on me. And then I started doing some therapy. I mean, I've had therapy on and off for decades, but I saw this new therapist about 5-6 years ago, and he said, "So what age were you told at?" I said, "I don't remember not knowing, so I think probably about 6 years old." He said, And can you remember anything about that? I said, I can't, but I know my mum and dad, they will have handled it really well. And, they never made me either feel more or less special for being adopted. and I've rationalised it my whole life. And then he says, but imagine being 6 and somebody saying to you, oh, your mum and dad, they're not actually your mum and dad. There's another mum and dad and you've come into this family, you've been adopted. And what you're doing is looking at that as an adult and rationalising it. But a 6-year-old wouldn't, no matter how well it was done, no 6-year-old would be able to completely process that. And then I think, oh, maybe it's really dumb because I feel like such an idiot for kind of the penny not dropping until I was 40 or whatever. But then you start thinking, oh, maybe that's why I've felt like a little bit of an outsider my whole life and I crave people's approval. And I don't like any kind of rejection because of that. And I don't think there's any fault on my parents' part. I just think, there's no right way of doing it. All you can do to some extent is damage limitation. I think you do a brilliant job of damage limitation, but ultimately that's what you're doing.
And did you ever get in touch with your birth mother?
No. So, again, like all my childhood, my mum and dad would say, if you ever want to find your birth mother, when you...
They obviously had all the records and knew who she was?
Well, no, because back then, those records didn't really exist in the same way. So I think if you were adopted after maybe the late 70s, early 80s, that stuff is quite... meticulously kept, and I think social workers are involved early on, and there is a route there if you want it. Before that, if I want to see my birth certificate and find out what my birth name was, I can talk to social services and they have that. But beyond that, there's no real records, and my parents weren't allowed that. So they would say, when you're 18, if you want to find her, we will help you. And I don't remember this at all, but apparently, I mean, it sounds like me on my 18th birthday, my mum came in and wished me happy birthday, and she said, and, you know, we've always said, if you want to find your real mum, now is the time. And I looked at it, sounds like something out of a soap opera, and said, Mum, you're the only mum I'll ever need. But I don't have any memory of saying that. I mean, I don't know if she's just constructed it to have a nice, happy, fluffy memory, but I just didn't. I just thought, I've got no interest in finding my birth parents. I've got parents. Why do I need new ones? Might be a nuisance. They might want money. I mean,
and also for her to say that on your 18th sounds like that was hanging over them as well, in a way.
Yeah, because how can it not? Yeah. And also, I think I would think about it like, because they were always so supportive, but I think, how could it not feel like a rejection of some sort? Again, yeah, you can rationalise these things and think, well, I wouldn't. But then you've been someone's mum their whole life, and then they turn 18. So how can I just like to go and find this other one because I've got these questions? You would be supportive of it, but at the same time, it would rake up some insecurity for you, surely.
And we've all heard stories because things like that do happen.
Yeah.
Not just on the 18th, they can happen later in life, can't they?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, sometimes I think, God, what if, though? What if they were like super rich and I'd have a big inheritance?
You don't think that?
Well, I know where I was adopted, and I think she was from Burnage, so I think it's unlikely.
How was Manchester growing up? Where was it? Were you in Withington?
I was born in Withington, but I was actually brought up just south of Manchester in Macclesfield, which is like a satellite town of Manchester. I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's a very kind of bog standard northern working class upbringing. I'm from a big family. My mum was from 12 brothers and sisters, and my dad was from 7. Neither of the families were Catholic. It was just that sort of wartime, post-war baby boom stuff. So always a lot of aunties. And
were they Manchester born and
raised? Everyone was in Macclesfield.
Oh, all from Macclesfield,
yeah.
Right.
In fact, I had one auntie, my Auntie Mary, who lived in Hazel Grove, which is in Stockport, which is maybe 8 miles down the road. But, it felt like this big undertaking if you ever went to see us. And it was quite nice having somebody who lived somewhere else, because then you got a sense there was somewhere else.
Yeah, instead of just staying in their place.
Yeah.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I've got one of each, both younger, and neither of whom are adopted.
Right.
So I think my parents had some trouble conceiving.
Right.
And that's why they adopted. And then 4 years later, my brother came along, and 4 years later, my sister came along. And I'm not so much now because I'm getting old, but I was always like this really ginger-haired kid and very bookish and not at all sporty. And my brother and sister are sort of the opposite. They have blonde hair, blue eyes.
Super sporty.
Yeah, super sporty. Yeah. But it was funny because I was always, like I say, bookish. And in my family, like simultaneously, that was encouraged and seen as this novelty. Like, oh, look at him with a book. Like it was the strangest, like it was a strange thing for a kid to be interested in reading. And that was kind of true of whatever I was interested in. I was always like a bit of an oddball. Nobody else seemed to be into it.
But do you have a good relationship with your brother and sister?
Yeah. My sister's 6 years younger. So we got, to some extent, you have a different childhood to your siblings because your parents' life is a little bit different at times. They've brought up kids already. We'd moved house, well, actually, not even when she was that young, but, the house that I think of as the house I grew up in isn't the house that my sister would think she grew up in. So
no.
I think everyone has even though you don't think you do, you have a slightly different childhood to your siblings. But yeah, we're sort of close-ish. I'm really close with my mum and dad.
Yeah.
And then my brother and sister I've got a good relationship with, but we're quite different people.
Yeah. Which happens in families all the time.
Yeah. My wife and her brother They're really close and they've got the same sense of humour and they like the same things.
Right.
I think, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do see that a lot, and when it's not necessarily with your siblings, you go, oh, wow, oh, can I have a bit? I wouldn't mind a bit of that, actually.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you kind of sometimes you wanted that growing up as well. I know a lot of people who find that growing up, they just knocked about with their brother all the time, or knocked about with their sister.
Yeah.
And then it certainly doesn't happen at home sometimes.
Although I always hated it when my mum would make me and my brother wear the same clothes. You know, if you ever go to a wedding or something like that,
yeah.
It'd drive me mad.
I hate seeing it though nowadays when I see kids dressed the same.
Or when kids dress the same as their parents as well. When people are too obviously trying to make their kid into a mini-me.
Oh, and now I see that all the time. I see that. I'm passing down my coolness to you, son. You shall wear this little Fred Perry.
Yeah.
And then they both got the same on.
Yeah, and I think you do. You know, like my wife is very anti trying to mould our son in any way. So in terms of what he likes, what his interests are, I think we're both kind of of a mind that we would hate him to do jobs like ours. My wife is a comedian.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. So any job which kind of involves being a performer of whatever sort or seeking approval feels very bad to either of us because we both do it for a living. But she hates me playing him the Beatles because she thinks I'm trying to force my taste on him. But I do it a little bit.
Do you think you are subconsciously? Well,
I think I am consciously sometimes.
Yeah.
So, there's a few Beatles songs that he's really into. And I say to my wife, I don't know how it happened. But I mean, I do know how it happened.
And she knows how it happened.
Yeah, and the Muppets as well. I've really got him into the Muppets.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I was crazy about them when I was a kid. So I've sort of force-fed him little bits of the Muppet movie and Muppet Show things, and now he really likes those. So I think, right, I'm going to buy him some toys. So despite the fact that I don't want to be one of these people who tries to create a mini-me, there are impulses. I'm just going to get a bit better at curbing them.
I mean, do you ever worry sometimes by not... No, I mean, I know he's only young and your lad, but by not going, I don't want him to do anything that I do. Forcing him off that track might make him want to go on the track. And I only know that because I know there's certainly some sort of actors and performers who are trying not to put their kids on that path or on that route.
You hear of it. You hear of it.
It kind of backfires sometimes.
Yeah, I want to try and split the difference, whatever that is. So I've got friends who, I've got a couple of friends actually who are comedians who are like, oh, my kid's so funny. He's got the sense of humour. I think he's going to... And I think, no, what you're doing is projecting that onto your child.
Yeah.
So what if that's one extreme, and then your profession must never be spoke of in the house, and they must get none of the fringe benefits of your profession. I think like whatever the difference is between the midpoint between those two things is.
I think a happy medium is a good place to be.
Yeah, because I've been doing. My son's mad on CBeebies House, and I've been doing some work at the BBC in Salford recently, and that's where they're based. And I thought, I bet I could speak to somebody and get him a tour of CBeebies House and go and look at it. And my wife is very hardline. She said, no, absolutely, you are not doing that. He is not having any privileges because of your job.
Really?
Yeah.
But that's like a perk, no?
Yeah, so my dad was a postman, and I'd get loads of elastic bands. And I'd get to go in the post office. That was a perk.
Yeah.
My mum was a nurse, and she'd bring home syringes, not with the needles in them, but we'd use those as water pistols. So, I think like a little bit of perks of your parents' job's fine, right?
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of leeway's allowed, surely. Were you like that at school, seeking approval with fellow sort of classmates and teachers?
So teachers, yeah, definitely, but not so much my fellow classmates. I think I felt so... Was that my stomach or yours?
Was it a helicopter?
Oh, right.
Oh, was it you?
I apologise, it's very odd.
What did you have for your lunch?
Nothing,
Right.
the stomach rumble.
Fellow students, certainly like at primary school, I wasn't that interested in. I was sort of in a world of my own, really. There was a lad called Tristan Maddox who I was friends with, but I wasn't a kid with that many friends, really. But I was obsessed with the teachers to the extent that, and I only remember this quite recently, and I told my wife, and she said that is such a strange thing to do. I would look up my teachers' names in the phone book.
Right.
And then ring them for a chat during the summer holidays.
No.
Yes.
I'm with your wife here, Geoff.
I know.
And did they not respond by going, Geoff? Why are you...
Well, they probably did, but that's not my memory of it. I just think, oh, Miss Allman, I've not seen her for a couple of weeks. I'll give her a ring and see how it's going. So, yeah, I think I always liked adults a bit better than the other kids, really.
Was that throughout your school life? Was that always like that?
No, I think when you get to be a teenager, you notice...
and you're changing.
Yeah, you
changing,
notice girls. And, and then I think... it was definitely when I became a teenager that I became interested in showing off, but I can't sort of think at what point or why, really. I wonder if it was because when I was 11, in the 80s, there was this thing called the assisted place scheme. And at primary school, the teachers got my parents in and said, look, Jeffrey's quite bright. He could go to this school, it'd be a really good opportunity for him, and the government would pay for it. And, my dad was a trade union shop steward at the post office.
Okay.
They're not people who'd ever considered private education, but then if someone's saying, oh, your son could really prosper if you put him in here.
And we'll pay.
Yeah. So I sat the entrance exam and I went to this school. It's called the King's School in Macclesfield, quite a posh school, and I hated it. I was so miserable. I got, just very stressed out by it. My parents ended up moving me back out of that school into the local comprehensive where I would have gone anyway.
Yeah.
And at the posh school, I was kind of bullied a little bit because I was off the estate, and my dad would pick me up in the post office van where everybody else has been picked up in Jags.
Yeah, of course.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
And then when I went to the comprehensive school, I was bullied a little bit because I'd come from the posh school. So they thought I must be posh.
God.
Yeah. And I wonder if something around that time made me think, okay, what's a survival mode? How can I define myself? So I became a bit of a show off.
Was it to make people laugh?
Yeah, although I've never had that, I've never wanted to be a comedian or anything like that, but I got interested in my whole childhood, like the telly was always on. I think sometimes that's a good signifier of somebody's class. You find out if the telly was on all the time and if people came round, you sat and watched it, or if, when the people come round, you turn the telly off.
Yeah.
If you turn the telly off, you're middle class. If it's on all the time, you're working class. And I was just obsessed with the telly. And I think when I was a teenager, I just really got it in my head that I'd like to be on the telly doing something.
Did you think that was an option at the time?
No, but, it's funny. I heard you talking to Carl Pilkington, who I used to work with, about this a while ago, and it's a funny thing.
Did used to work with Carl?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about that. Was it in
Piccadilly Q103 in Manchester? Yeah. And it's funny because even the local radio doesn't seem like anything you would do because nobody in your world does jobs like that.
No, I remember hearing local radio in Lancashire and thinking that's big. When they came to open an electrical store like in Blackpool, and they were going to be here.
Red Rose, Rock FM.
Exactly. Yeah. They're big celebrities because I listened to them on the radio.
Yeah, definitely. And I did. I mean, I got obsessed with listening to the radio, but it didn't feel like something people did. But I just got it in my head. I think I have this thing in my head sometimes to my detriment where I think, well, if somebody else can have it, why can't I?
Well, I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to think, can't you?
Maybe, but I think it's the sort of seed of a lot of unhappiness as well, isn't it?
From where?
I don't know. When you start thinking, oh, if somebody else can have a yacht, why can't I?
Well, no, I mean, you're talking about a huge thing there, but I'm more thinking about, well, if you say to a young lad who's got aspirations of being on the telly, well, yeah, why can't you?
Yeah.
Why can't that be you? Well, I couldn't do anything like that. Look at them. Why can't that be you?
Well, there's no path, or at least back then it didn't seem like there was any path from being a kid in a comprehensive school in Macclesfield to being on the radio or on the telly.
But I don't think anybody thinks that there is. I mean, maybe more so nowadays because there's different routes.
Yeah.
And, I remember someone saying they went into school and they were asking like the kids about what they wanted to do. And they were 13, 14-year-olds, I don't want to be on the telly. Oh, great, you want to act? No, I just want to be on the telly.
Right, so but that's more I want to be famous, right?
It is, that's kind of that route, isn't it?
I guess,
like,
yeah. But I remember, going to tell the careers teacher I wanted to be a telly presenter, and getting it was like a filing card system that the careers teachers used to have, and somehow they would match up your personality and your results to a job, and it came back to, well, why don't you try for a YTS in NatWest Bank or something like that? Yeah. So what I did was I looked at magazines like Lookin', and the Radio Times, and I'd read about.
I used to collect looking.
Did you?
Yeah.
And at the back,
they'd
have the profiles of people. So I'd see the people who were on the telly, and it seemed to me that all of them had got onto the telly by being on the radio first. So I thought, oh, well, I should try and get on the radio then. And then you look at how people get on the radio, and they'd all done hospital radio. So I just wrote to the local hospital radio in Macclesfield, and sort of from the first day that I walked into a radio studio, even it was a little sort of podunk hospital radio studio, I didn't want to do anything else, really.
Really?
Yeah, like the smell. You know, you can sometimes hear stories like this and think about people like working these long hours for free and starting at the bottom. But I was so consumed by it, it didn't feel like the bottom. It just felt like just getting to be in that room.
Yeah.
While, you know, somebody who essentially probably was like a local mobile DJ did some cheesy hospital radio show, just being in that room with that red light going on and the turntables going around and the faders and all the lights and things, that felt as exciting as anything I've subsequently done, you know.
And what I thing is, and this is genuine, what I've always liked about you on the radio or listening to a podcast is you've got a very, very natural way. There's nothing hard selly about you. Like there's some DJs I find quite upsetting to hear because I know because I go, that's not you.
Yeah,
that's not. I mean, I know we don't need everybody to be real, and people have got personas, but you've got a very nice, relaxing flow.
Yeah, but I mean, it takes a while to. The first bit of advice anybody gives you when you want to do radio is be yourself. But I think it takes a long time to be yourself.
Well, I was going to say, what was it like at hospital radio? Were you finding a voice there?
Oh, yeah, but I mean, it was awful. Like, so some time ago, I went back to my mum and dad's house and I found a box of tapes.
You didn't?
I did, and I found me on hospital radio at the age of 14 or 15.
Please tell me you've got some.
I haven't. No, I haven't even got a tape player, but I listened to it and I thought, oh, this. I'm going to see, like, whatever it is that I've ended up doing for a living, I'm going to hear a kernel of it in there. And I listened to it, and it wasn't just that it was terrible because there's an inexperience. I just couldn't hear any potential in there. I think if some kid had sent me that and said, "What do you think?" I'd be trying to nudge them in a different direction. You know, have you thought about maybe working in production? Or something? Yeah. So a big turning point for me, really, with radio and being myself is when I started off, I went from hospital radio to volunteering at Piccadilly Radio to getting a job on local radio in Stockport.
Oh, so that was the next step from hospital. It was to go and do. Was it volunteering?
Yeah, so I used to go and answer the phones at Piccadilly and do film reviews.
Right.
But in terms of like getting a job on the radio, I got in with this radio station in Stockport, which was called KFM, and it was like the first 6 music style station in Britain.
Yeah.
And it, you know, they didn't make any money, and it got bought by a local radio station called Signal. But one of the guys who was on there from the off was Craig Cash.
Right.
Who, you know, with Caroline Aherne created Mrs. Merton and the Royal Family and so on. And it was an incredible place to work because he used to do the late night show Monday to Thursday.
Did he?
And then on a weekend it was John Ronson, who's of course gone on to write some amazing books like The Psychopath Test and Men Who Stare at Goats, and he's a great film writer and podcaster in his own right. So Caroline was around as well. And then you'd have like lots of people from the Manchester scene like Terry Christian or 808 State all doing shows as well. So it was quite an interesting little place.
Great time to be in Manchester.
It was, it really was. But Craig didn't sound like someone on the radio.
Because he sounded like Craig.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't sound like Craig and sound like someone on the radio.
No.
So there was no airs and graces. He wouldn't be, you know, talking... there'd be no patter to what he was doing. If something, you know, he'd seen something funny, he'd tell a little story from his life, and he'd be really passionate about music and play a Pixies record next to a Frank Sinatra record, next to a Sonic Youth record. You know, it was really eclectic, and it was listening to how Craig did it, actually, that made me think, oh, I don't need to be anything different than what
put on any sort of persona.
Exactly. Yeah. So that made a big difference to me. But at the same time, I was only about 19.
Oh God, you're still so young.
Yeah. Craig used to call me the boy DJ, and he was so good with me, really, because I was being paid, I think, like £10 a show or something, and all the grown-up DJs, the guys in their 30s and stuff, were getting 50, and Craig would go in screaming at the bosses on my behalf and saying,
Did he?
Yeah, he was brilliant. And and then I got fired off the radio. Craig got fired, and then I got fired not long afterwards.
What did he get fired for?
Craig got fired because he was playing Sonic Youth records next to Frank Sinatra records, next to, on a radio station that most of the time was playing Take That.
Right, okay.
By this point.
And then why did you get fired?
Well, there's a story. So I got fired a couple of times.
How did you get fired twice?
So I can't remember why I got fired the first time. I think it had something to do with the fact it was this radio station that they stopped having programs on at night. They just took programs from a sustaining service, like a network somewhere.
Right.
And because I wasn't quite, maybe I was 17 at that point, I wasn't old enough to go to pubs, or maybe I was a bit older and didn't have the money to go to pubs. Me and my mates had sort of have keys to the radio station, go and hang out in there.
Really?
At night, yeah. And I think there was, something they didn't like about a bunch of teenage lads.
Oh, do you think?
Treating a radio station like a doss house. And then the second time I got sacked, it's a bit bleak actually. It's a bleak story.
Unless you don't want to talk about it.
No, I'll talk about it. But I mean, I used to tell this story as if it was funny. And then my wife said to me, that's just a really depressing story. And I've never been able to tell it since, really. I was on Scroobius Pip's podcast a couple of years ago, and I sort of tried that. But anyway, so fast forward, I'm 20, 21. I'm drinking a lot by this stage.
Right.
And I should add at this point, I've not had a drink for 18 years. But I was really, I was drinking a lot. And it was the start of what ended up being, an adulthood full of mental health problems. But it was the first time I had an episode as such.
Right.
And I got this sort of manic idea into my head that I was going to move to Paris and become a musician. Now, I don't speak any French. I don't really play a musical instrument, and I didn't have the means to move to Paris. So those are three important parts of the story. The other important part of the story is that I didn't make a plan. I was just out one night drinking and thought, oh God, this is what I'm going to do. So I hitchhiked to Calais, to Dover, got a ferry to Calais, had this sort of strange drunken hitchhiking trip to Paris. I mean, it was quite bizarre. It all feels surreal when I think about it. Like I was in the cab of this big 18-wheeler lorry with a French lorry driver who didn't speak English, who had a crate of those little stubby bottles of beer, and we were just drinking in this cab going down the French motorways. Then he dropped me off somewhere, and some guy picked me up in this very old Citroen that he drove on the motorway about 20 miles an hour, and he was just listening to Disney songs the whole time. I thought, oh well, this is it. I'm gonna be murdered here.
Yeah.
But I wasn't murdered. And I eventually ended up in Paris and slept under a bridge, and then sort of wandered around the next day in a sort of, I don't know if it was a kind of a manic stupor or a drunken stupor or whatever it was. And then at some point, reality struck, and I had to ring my parents and say, Mum, Dad, I'm in Paris. Because I'd gone missing. I hadn't told anyone.
Oh, you didn't tell anybody?
I'd gone out after a radio show one night and just made this decision whilst drunk.
While you were drinking by yourself?
I'd been out with someone and then, gone off on my own afterwards. But, not said anything about it. So whatever that episode was, I basically ended up missing for 4 or 5 days.
Jesus.
And there wasn't a job for me when I came back.
No wonder.
Yeah.
Your parents must have been worried sick, though.
Yeah. It's not, it's not nice to think about.
No. Were you aware at that point? You probably weren't. How old were you?
20, 21.
So you weren't aware that there was any sort of problem with drinking, or were you?
No, I wasn't. No, because, it's like culturally anyway. Like everyone drinks.
Over here, yeah.
Yeah, and everything, something's wrong with you if you can't go out and drink that much. But I think it wasn't just, after that I was, I was under I wasn't in a mental hospital at that point, but I was under a mental hospital outpatients for a while, and I was medicated, and they
whose idea was that to?
Well, I think sort of when I called my parents and explained what had happened, my mum, her first instinct was to take me to the doctors, and
because she was a nurse.
Yeah, or because it's an unusual behaviour, and I think by the time I got round to ringing them and trying to figure out a way to get back from Paris to Manchester, I think it was obvious that it was quite an erratic thing to do. And even like now we talk about mental health things a lot more openly than we did back then. But I think even then that behaviour was so extreme that, that my mum knew the thing to do would be to take me to a doctor. So,
and what did the doctor say?
Well, the doctor, at the time it was a diagnosis of bipolar, which, over the years I've been reassessed at different points, and sometimes it comes up as cyclothymia, which is a milder version of bipolar. But the big thing that has made the difference for me and helped me get under control is just not drinking, though, because if you're depressive and you're feeling suicidal or whatever, drink will.
Well, it's only going to make it worse.
Yeah, because what drink does is make you think, fuck it. And, if the fuck it is, all right, I'm going to go throw myself off under a train or whatever, that's not good. And if you're in a manic episode where you think, okay, I'm going to put £5,000 on a credit card and, go to the Maldives or whatever it would be, the drink makes you think, fuck it, yeah, what does it matter?
That massive extreme
behaviour. Yeah. So it's quite good to take that out of the equation and just be dealing with those extremes without drink being a factor, really.
And how long were you under sort of doctor's care at that stage?
Well, so then I went on Medicaid. I never went on anything like lithium, which is a mood stabiliser, but I went on sort of different antidepressants and have been fairly much on and off ever since.
Were they working for you?
I don't know.
Because you obviously at that point you were still drinking.
Yeah. So, I mean, the short answer is no, because even though I didn't do anything quite as erratic as go missing for 4 or 5 days since, like I've got some very black places subsequently. So if the antidepressants were working, the booze was counteracting them.
Exactly, it's cancelling it out, isn't it?
Yeah. And I genuinely don't know if I take them as placebo or not. Did you read Johan Hari's last book?
No.
So there's a little bit of controversy around it.
Well, I heard about it,
some people said, he's saying ignore science and throw away your antidepressants, which I don't think quite that is what he was saying. He was talking about, the underlying issues and how connection is as important as anything else with mental health, which I, got a lot of sympathy for. But anyway, I mean, I take them because why not, right? I think, if they are acting as a safety net, then I'm going to carry on letting them do that. If they're not, and it's just tricking my brain into thinking they are, then it's great to have that trick.
And they are working? You're not having any sort of episodes?
Yeah, no, I've not been... Yeah, I've not... 2014 I had a bad year of it, but I've not had anything sort of significant. I mean, a little bit ups and downs, but, nothing really bad since then. Nothing where I've kind of gone to bed for weeks for a few years. So maybe I'm due one.
Don't say that. Don't spring that on me.
Maybe this very heavy conversation is going to send me spiralling into a depressive episode.
I really hope not, Geoff. Don't say that. I'll walk out of here with loads of guilt. When was there a moment when the drinking reached such an extent that it worried you?
No, and it should have done, really,
Because usually, when you speak to people, they go, well, I got to this point and it was the lowest point, and then I knew.
No, I know what I should have known. So I was drinking so much that they used to say it was an ulcer, but I think they've changed their mind on what constitutes an ulcer now. But I was getting such bad acid indigestion and reflux that I would wake up in the night with pains in my chest. So I started sleeping with a bottle of Baileys next to the bed. Because I thought, the sort of creaminess of the Baileys will cancel out the heartburn.
Oh my God, I remember my dad used to have a glass of milk.
Yeah.
Bloody sleeping with
the same mentality. Yeah.
Was no one stepping in or intervening at this point? Friends or family to go, Geoff, I think there's something going on here.
Not really. Subsequently, you talk to people and people have been great by and large. And, people say, I was worried about you at this point. But at the time, I think I was quite forceful in how much I really loved drinking and being drunk. I think it sort of made it a central pillar of my personality. Right, everyone, let's go to the pub, let's do this, let's see where tonight will take us.
Were you always that type of person? You wanted everybody to, let's all drink.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I'm not that type of person.
No, I was going to say you don't seem that at all.
I think the drink... the drink was really just masking the fact that I'm not that type of person. And again, I think back to when I was at that first radio station I worked at in Stockport with Craig and these other guys. We'd go to the pub next door, and everybody had seemed so funny. Craig is the funniest person, and all these, guys would have the stories and they'd be quick-witted. And before I really started drinking, I would just sit there shrinking in the corner, and I'd feel like I didn't deserve a place at the table and I wasn't interesting or funny enough or whatever. And then you start drinking, and of course you think, one of the great things drink does for you is you think you're the most interesting and the most funny person at the table. And I think that partly was why I got into drinking so much in the first place. It made me feel like I had a personality.
Yeah.
And now, I think about it, and I think if I was, for whatever reason, if we got a kid on work experience and we'd gone out to the pub with him, I'm not expecting some 18-year-old kid to be like he's at the Algonquin Round Table, regaling us with anecdotes. And the pressure feels really silly now with hindsight.
Yeah, but he'd feel
like
that 18-year-old would feel that, wouldn't it? As the same as what you felt.
Yeah.
Because, when you're young, you kind of want to be part of it.
Yeah.
But you're running before you can actually walk to it and be that type of person.
And sort of the big, the big thing since I've stopped drinking, really, or the thing that sort of dominates my life, is just feeling socially uncomfortable the whole time, which I've been able to turn into something with Adrift. I mean, if people haven't heard that podcast, it's kind of a podcast about social awkwardness and all these sort of tiny moments in life. But I don't think I ever liked being around a lot of people in the first place. I'm quite introverted. I'm really enjoying talking to you in a one-on-one setting.
Yeah.
But I went to my best friend's wedding the other week, and just the thought of sitting at a table with 6 or 8 people, some of whom I know, some of whom I don't, was terrifying to me.
No, but I find that I would quite happily stay in and swerve that. Or if I've got, I don't want to go to these big do's. I can't.
Oh, I mean, it can ruin.
Well, it's really hard because I can't do small talk.
Yeah.
So then, in my mind, I'm worried that because I can't do small talk, I'm going to say something that's going to offend or upset somebody, or I'll be so nervous that I'll come across in a certain way.
Yep.
Because I don't know what to do in that situation.
I went to a party. My insurance salesman had a 60th birthday party, and it was somewhere swanky, the Claridge's Hotel in London. And I got introduced by him to another of his clients who was a much older, very successful businessman, and the three of us talked for a while. Then, because it's my life insurance salesman's birthday, he's called away somewhere else. I carry on talking to this fella. After about 30 seconds, he shakes my hand, says, "Geoff, it was very nice to meet you," and then just turns his back on me and stands staring at the wall.
What?
My small talk is so bad that somebody would rather stare at a wall than talk to me.
I wish I had the balls to do that.
I know.
Can you imagine?
Because I'm just constantly pretending that I need the toilet.
Where's Jack? The toilet again?
Yeah.
Again? Has he got that problem? It seems like it.
I would rather people think that I've got irritable bowel syndrome than have to make small talk. It's just excruciating.
Because I've always more or less heard you with a partner.
Yeah, so when I was...
think is that something that you... I mean, I know you bounce off people, but do you feel you need that on radio?
So I do a little bit of radio where I don't do that. So, I used to do this Beatles show where it's just sort of me talking about the Beatles, and that was fine. I've done a bit of filling in on Radio 2 recently, and it's fine, but I prefer radio, which is kind of a conversation of sorts, to just sitting there. I know some people really love that intimacy of them and a microphone, but I prefer.
But it can still be quite intimate when there's two people having that conversation.
Yeah, I think so, and you feel like you're eavesdropping.
Yeah,
a little bit.
And
I've done a lot of stuff with callers in the past, so you can get that with callers or interviewees or whatever. But I never intended it to be like that. I was on this local radio station in Stockport, and then after I got sacked, I ended up on Piccadilly Key 103 Radio in Manchester, and I was sort of ended up in a double act by mistake with a guy called Pete.
Yeah.
And we were this double act for 10 years, and we ended up sort of
then
moving to Virgin
London,
and then doing the Virgin Breakfast show. But it was just sort of by accident, because Craig Cash lived near Pete. And after I'd been fired off the radio, this is how this tangent all started, but Craig and Caroline felt sorry for me, so they gave me a job on Mrs. Merton.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so, I mean, they created a job, basically.
For you?
For me, yeah, and it was fetching Caroline Benson and Hedges and Asti Spermanti and making sure that she just had the exact right amount of Asti Spermanti before she did the interviews. And then Craig moved house, and he lived near Pete Mitchell, who was this local radio guy, and he kept badgering him to get Geoff in there. And Pete did. I was producing this alternative music show of his, and then one day they asked him to fill in on a breakfast show, and he said, "Have you got any ideas?" And I said, "Yeah, I've got a few." He said, "Well, you just come in on the first day to make sure it all runs smoothly." So I went in, and a couple of times he would speak to me on the air, and then after we came off, the bosses said, "Oh, if he's going to speak, will you give him a microphone, because it sounds bad that he's off mic?" And that was, that's how that double act happened. It was just sort of an accident, really.
And was it a double act that obviously worked tremendously well on radio, but were you good friends off?
Yeah, I think it's more like I think of Pete a little bit like a brother in a certain way, in that we're people who were thrown together in the beginning of the relationship is an odd one.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would have necessarily developed organically if he'd just been someone I'd gone to school with, because we're quite different types. But I love him, but I genuinely think that if I didn't make the effort to ring him,
he wouldn't do.
I would never hear from him for the rest of my life, just because that's the type of person he is. He's sort of gruff and a little bit aloof.
Yeah.
And then Annabelle, who I do the podcast with, we did radio for another 10 years or so after that, and we're very close friends in real life,
which I think comes across. I think you can't. I don't think you can fake that.
Yeah.
It's a very, very natural.
Which is why it always seems strange to me when radio stations just pluck two people and put them together and hope there's going to be chemistry there.
Well, it kind of baffled me, and there was one very specific one last year that happened.
Yeah,
and I kept listening out of intrigue, because I thought the last time this certain person was doing a double act with somebody, it really worked.
Yeah,
and this just doesn't work. There's zero chemistry at all.
I think sort of start with the chemistry and then work out.
Well, you'd think, wouldn't you? Don't just go, well, I like him and I like her, let's stick them together, and I'm sure it'll work because they're radio professionals.
Yeah.
Doesn't really work like that, I
think it can do on telly a little bit, because it's they're just doing items, aren't they? But with radio, because it's so personal, and so much of it is a conversation, you've got to fill all these hours worth of airtime. There needs to be something there, and that's was sort of my starting point with that podcast with Ed Miliband as well. So he'd been on the radio show, and we'd done this interview in the run up to 2015, which went. Somebody used a phrase that I really like. I don't know who it is, so I can't credit them. But they said it didn't go viral, but it went fungal. So it's it's not quite full on viral. He'd come on the show, and then there were these articles in from the Telegraph to the Independent saying, "Is this the interview that's going to make Ed Miliband Prime Minister?" Because he came across differently in that interview to what he might have done if you'd seen him on Newsnight or whatever. And the reason was that I'd seen him speak at a couple of events, Fabian Society things or whatever, and thought, "Oh God, you're nothing like the Ed I see on television." So I just wanted to try and get that out of him. And then when I finished the radio show and I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, podcast with this big part of it, and I was feeling really glum about how divided everyone was over Brexit and the state of things in America with Trump, and just how politics just seemed chaotic, and thought, well, if you can't kind of get excited about what's going on in politics, because I think sometimes I follow current affairs like other people follow sport.
Right.
So I'm not a sports fan, but so, you have that, you have your team you support, and you see the comings and goings and so on. But if you can't kind of feel inspired by what's going on there, then what are the ideas out there for fixing the world and making it a better place? So that was my idea. And then I thought, I bet Ed would be great on that, just because he must have heard ideas constantly when he was putting together a manifesto, and even before that, putting together policies with Gordon Brown. So
did you approach him about it?
Yeah, I just wrote him a note, and I got a message back fairly much straight away saying, "Oh, I love that idea. Why don't you pop round?" Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah,
and so it was born.
Yeah, and it's but it was building on that chemistry in that original interview.
Yeah,
and we've become good friends, really.
But it's funny, isn't it? We were talking earlier about DJs in the 80s were ones that kind of went through radio and then went on to the television. Sometimes it really doesn't work.
No.
Some people are just for radio, aren't they?
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about going and...
Well, I've done some bits, and, you know, I don't know if I'm very good at it. You know, I did... Game of Thrones has one of those spin-off shows.
The Thronecast.
Yeah, and I hosted the first 3 series of that, and the first couple were online only, so it was very low pressure. And then it was going well, so they put the third one on the telly, and somebody wrote into Sky, it was good, it was saying only Sky would put the most expensive program ever made for television, followed by the cheapest program ever made for television, because that's what it was. Basically, we wouldn't get the episodes in advance. I'd have to sort of download it off American TV the night before, sit and write some thoughts on it, and then just busk it. And we did, you know, sometimes get actors in if HBO were feeling generous, and sometimes we wouldn't. And there was nothing there, so we just had the time to fill and nothing to fill it with, and no money to fill it with. And I really loved doing it, but I don't know really that I'm very good at it. And certainly when Sky got a new boss, they didn't think so.
Do you enjoy it though?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, but you know, just because you enjoy something doesn't mean somebody should give you money to do it. You know.
True, but we see it and hear it all the time.
Yeah.
But you obviously love radio. You also love broadcasting.
Yeah, I do. I don't particularly miss being on the radio every day, but I really like what I've really liked doing recently is I've been on 5 Live, and I've never done that type of radio before. I've only ever played records and talked in between. And with this, it's speech radio, and you're doing a lot of interviews. And I've really felt quite stretched by that. So I'd like to do a bit more of that, I think.
Cece's still learning after all this time, you say?
You got to, haven't you?
Well, I think you do have to in every sort of job.
You don't want to embarrass yourself is the thing.
Well, no, but you've got to sort of fail a little bit.
But what I mean is you've got to keep getting better at it. And you've got to, you know, worry about whether your program or whatever it is you're making is good. Because if it isn't, then somebody can point and laugh at it and say, oh, that's terrible, or that guy's embarrassed. So I'm always just trying to get a bit better. I've got 2 friends. I'm going to have to pick my son up from nursery in a second. But I've got 2 friends, both called Chris. And if I do something good on the radio, I think, I really hope Chris heard that, because he's like this positive person. He's got good taste. And then if I do something where I think I've not done a good job of that, I think, oh shit, I hope the other Chris didn't hear that, because he's really sort of cynical and he's also got good taste, and I'm worried that I'd be embarrassing myself in front of him. So I have a little Chris test. Like, if both Chris's would have liked it, then I'm happy with it.
Speaking of happiness, I just want to ask you one more thing. And I don't ask this a lot, but I do sometimes. Are you happy?
It's good. Yeah, I'm not. I think I'm happy, but I'm not content. I think
what aren't you content with?
Well, I'm just constantly worried. You know, I'm a worrier. Like, I worry, oh God, what if this doesn't happen? Or what if this does happen, then I can't pay the mortgage? What if we're destitute? What if I have to live under a bridge? What if my wife takes my son back to America because I'm not able to support the family and the relationship breaks down? So I'm not happy in that regard, but I really love what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't feel, like I said before, I'm not kind of missing being on the radio every day. And you know, I'm very happy in my personal life, despite the fear that my wife could leave me and move back to America with my son.
Jeff, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
Was that all right? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, very much so. I'm sorry we've got to cut it short.
It's all right. It was great.
And another episode is done. I hope you got something out of that. Geoff is a lovely fella. And I'll be really honest with you, I would have loved another hour with him. But time are against us. Who knows? Maybe when he's free, we'll come back on and we'll have another chat. Because I love spending time with him. He was a really, really nice guy, and honest, so honest. And what more can we ask? Right. Well, I best be off, because next week is episode 80. We are 20 episodes away from our 100th episode. Can you believe it? What are we going to do? Someone give me some ideas. We've got to do something special. You know about Save the Date, don't you? Save this date. Sunday, April the 14th. If you're in London, we've got something special for you. I'll tell you much more about it next week. Until then, stay safe. Take care. I've been Craig Parkinson. He's been producer Griff. And this has been the Two Shot Podcast. Take care of yourself. The Two Shot Podcast is presented by me, Craig Parkinson, recorded and produced by Thomas Griffin for Splicing Block. Our brilliant music is courtesy of Then Thickens. Cheers.